So you may be interested in opening your own independent bookstore one day, and you're curious how much would it cost to go from planning a bookstore to opening a bookstore. And in this video, I'm going to cover from my own experiences opening Spineless Reads independent bookstore here in Williamsburg, Virginia, how much it costs to open a bookstore these days. All right, guys, let's dive in. So I opened Spineless Reads roughly 8 months ago. After 2 years of searching for the right location, selling books at events, selling books online, building and opening inventory, and I learned a ton along the way. And so I want to start with what is most likely going to be the largest expense involved in your business, and that is the commercial lease. Okay, so a lease is essentially a commercial rental, right? I'm going to rent a space to house my bookstore. And this is probably the one part about all of this that scared me the most. It wasn't necessarily about the long-term cost. I was more worried about this being my highest monthly obligation cost-wise. And in hindsight, I kind of smile about that because it's roughly 50% of my monthly obligation to keep my business open nowadays. I'm spending just as much, if not more, on books every month and rebuilding my inventory as I do on my commercial lease. But still, it was the largest number that scared me. It felt like the one obligation I couldn't move from. And so I want to share with you guys some of the details about a commercial lease first. There are a few things that impact the cost of your commercial lease. One is the price you're paying per square foot. The way most commercial leases are organized is that you pay a certain amount per square foot of the space you're renting. The next thing is the duration of the lease. Are you signing a 1-year lease, a 3, a 5, a 7-year lease? Normally what you're going to see is a request from the landlord for a 5-year lease, but I did negotiate mine to a shorter term to make it more beneficial for me to kind of see if this business is going to work long term before I was locked into a 5-year lease. So the next cost you have to worry about with your commercial lease is maintenance fees, our maintenance fees. And for us, they're called CAM. They're a common area maintenance fee. I'm in a shopping center, so that common area maintenance fee includes maintenance to the parking lot, the sidewalks, all the groundskeeping, rooftop maintenance, that type of stuff. The only thing it really doesn't cover is anything within the walls of the facility and my HVAC. So we have a single HVAC unit for our space, and although it is provided initially by the landlord as part of our lease, we are required to pay for the maintenance on that HVAC, on the air conditioning and heating system. So our lease requires a monthly or a quarterly maintenance contract be completed on our HVAC system so that the landlord knows that you're taking care of the system they're providing you. But here's the crazy part that you have to kind of wrap your head around, whether you agree with it or not. Most commercial leases require you to pay for the maintenance, and if something were to happen to the unit, they may require you to pay for replacement. And these units are far more expensive than a residential HVAC unit in most cases, so just be aware of that risk when you're signing your lease. Okay, so all of this information is great, but what did it actually cost? When I round the number off, for me to get in and pay the security deposit plus my first month's lease cost me $9,300, okay? Now, I know you probably got a little sticker shock right now, and that's completely understandable, but I want you to understand that included the very first month's rent and my security deposit plus all of my build-out time. Now, the lease had a certain amount of months built into it that I could occupy the space without paying the rent in order to build out the business. So that $9,300 isn't quite as bad as it sounds when you think, well, the vast majority of that is the security deposit, and then the first month's rent isn't due until you actually open for business. And for me, that took roughly 1 quarter. It took 2 to 3 months for me to do my build out, fill the space with books, and get into business. They allotted me much more time than that. So although I only took that 2 to 3 months, they gave me significantly more time to do it. But it's in our best interest, everyone's interest, for me to get open earlier rather than later. And I was itching to get open in time for the holiday season. So I opened September 27th, 2025. All right, one little note about the HVAC fees is that those are separate from my lease. So while that $9,300 got me into the space, I had to allocate another $400 just to do the first quarter HVAC inspection, right? Inspect the system, perform the first month's maintenance, and get up and going. So just kind of wrap your head around that $9,700 to get up and running for the first day of business when it came to the lease. Now, another two items that I really feel like are kind of tied to the lease, but they're definitely not tied to the lease, are my business license, my first estimate for taxes for the, sales tax for the rest of the year, and insurances. And for me, the business license plus the first taxes was just a couple of $100. I think I paid $100 for the business license, and another $100 or so to estimate a quarter's worth of sales taxes for the county. And you have to go file all that with them. And so I think I paid like $150 to get up and running at first with the county, and another $100 for the business license with the state. So you have to wrap those costs into opening as well. And then for the insurances, I pay $135 a month, but it was quoted to me as an annual of roughly $1,600. So you have to have those insurances on your space when you start working. Now, I did not include any contractor insurances or contractor expenses in any of my estimates because I didn't hire any contractors to do any of the build out. So with the numbers I'm getting ready to share with you, just know that this is contractor free, and it did not include any insurance for contractors. So if you take my business license fee, my cost to get into the space with my lease, my insurances and all that, it cost me $10,635 to occupy the space. All right, now take a big deep breath. I know there's a lot of sticker shock there because that's a lot of money, right? Over 10 grand, that's a lot of money. But I just want you to know that like my process and my strategy for managing all that was just to keep my head down, make every decision intentionally, make them intelligently, and accept the fact that this is the cost of doing business and just move forward. Now, referencing my trusty spreadsheet here, my build out included my exterior sign, my bookcases, my point of sale system, the cost of getting the space ready, taking down the old bookcases or display cases from the silver shop that used to be here and installing all of my stuff, painting the walls, all the stuff, right? Getting everything ready. Flooring, I didn't have to worry about replacing the flooring. I was able to use the pre-existing flooring, and here this is carpet, which is nice. Tables and chairs, and all of my Wi-Fi and stereo systems. My exterior signs were close to the highest cost of build out for me. It will not be that case if you're paying contractors to build your bookcases. If you're paying contractors to install your furnishings, like your bookcases, that will be your most significant cost to your build out, or should be, unless you're like completely renovating a building to install new walls or tear down load-bearing walls and do that type of work. I didn't do any of that. I moved into a commercially ready space. All I had to do was take the old displays down and install my furnishings. Now, that included my bookcases and the point of sale counter area. And so my bookcases became my second highest single cost to the exterior signs. Now, I had no idea how much exterior signs were going to cost when I got into this, but my total cost for my exterior signs was roughly $5,800, okay? Now that is an illuminated professional sign installed on the upper top portion of the front of the store. I could have done two of those because both sides of my store, the front and the back, face main areas for shopping. Our back entrance is closed. It is not accessible to traffic. So I did not put a sign on the back of my store, but I am going to do a window wrap because the whole back of the store is window. And that would cost me another roughly $1,000 to $1,500. So with the sign I did out front, that was $5,800. I do have a future cost of $1,000 to $1,500 for the back window wrap coming this year. Now let's talk about the big boy, the bookcases, right? Okay, I did all the research on the bookcases. How much would it cost for me to go with the lowest priced option of buying cheaper pre-made IKEA bookcases, filling the space with them, painting them, reinforcing them, and all of that was going to come out to somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, when it came to buying the bookcases, reinforcing them, putting paint on them, and the whole thing. My space is roughly 1,160 square feet. I did not see myself doing that just to turn around and close the business in the future and then install more expensive bookcases later. I knew that a lot of people were using like the Billy cases from IKEA to install in their stores, but I went to a store out of this area that had done that, and all of their bookcases were sagging. Like every shelf was sagging from the weight of the books over time, plus the humidity. So I knew I needed hardwood bookcases. The Billys are not hardwood. I knew that the hardwood cases needed to be taller than 7 feet because of the height of my space, or it would look kind of odd. So I decided to build my own bookcases after I priced bookcases. Now, for me to go with one of the more popular, higher end, predominantly sought after book furnishing companies, I'll just say that, it would have cost me somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 just in bookcases. So luckily for me, I have some talent in my family that is great with carpentry. Shout out to Pops. If you guys haven't seen the video yet, I did outline how we built our own bookcases, and that came in at roughly $5,000 to $6,000, right? That was significantly cheaper than paying 30, 35, 40 grand for bookcases. So I opted to build my own bookcases out of hardwoods that we bought at Lowe's and at Home Depot, and assemble them and prime them and paint them and finish them and all the things ourselves. We get a lot of comments about our bookcases, but that was probably the single most important decision I made to cut my opening costs, was to build my own bookcases. Again, if you haven't seen the video, you can check it out about how we did that. And I go step by step and all the material costs and everything. So the point of sale countertop was custom built much the same way our bookcases were. I was able to reduce my price on the materials because we had like a bookcase style displays on the wall that the previous tenant had left. And I was able to cut those down and make those into like a U, and then put countertops that we bought at Lowe's and Home Depot on top of those. So my point of sale system was drastically reduced in price because we just like the bookcases, we built them ourselves. Now, the other key component to a point of sale system is the actual checkout system. The laptop, the credit card swipe, the cash register, all of those things. This to me was a huge decision because it is the interface with the customer. I didn't want something that was too cheap. I didn't want anything difficult. I wanted to look professional. I wanted to be clean, but I wanted to be simple. And I settled on Shopify. And I bought the Shopify point of sale system direct from them for roughly $1,200. So when you consider the Shopify point of sale system expense plus me building out the countertop, it came out to roughly $2,500 for the point of sale system. Now, for me to finish the walls, like taking everything down, scraping them, plastering them or puttying them, smoothing them, painting them, all the materials that it took to do all this, the plastic to put down on the floors, painter's tape, paint, brushes, all that, rollers, all those things. I spent about $300. And I spent a significant amount of money on paint doing this build out between the bookcases, the point of sale system, and the walls, okay? So one of the most important material cost decisions I made was to go open a business account at the local Sherwin-Williams. And that gave me drastically better prices on high-end paint, which was important to me because I don't feel like repainting these bookcases nor this space every 6 months to keep them looking good. I wanted high-end, durable paint, and I was able to open up a business account with the local Sherwin-Williams, and those guys were amazing. Shout out to the guys on Route 60 here in Williamsburg, Virginia. They're in the Lightfoot area. And that was a significant cost cutting. I think like an $85 gallon of paint ended up being like $65. So I saved like $20 for every gallon of paint I bought. That's huge. Now let's talk about the other furnishings, like the tables and chairs. Now I was able to get all of that from like consignment shops, secondhand, antique malls, that kind of thing. And that saved me a ton of money as well. And I was shopping all over the region, from Richmond to Williamsburg. I was bouncing between shops. I went to Oddballs, which is like another oddities kind of antique collectors consignment place in Richmond. They were great. Three Doors Down, the Velvet Shoestring, Lazy Daisy, like all of these stores in the area. I got most of my stuff through them, plus the Restore. We have a local Restore. And all of my tables and chairs cost me about $1,820. The only exception to secondhand were the actual 4 seated chairs I have in the shop for customers. And those 4 chairs, I think I got at Marshall's and at like Home Goods or whatever, and they were like $110 each. But all of that is wrapped up in that $1,820 in tables and chairs. So the last thing is the Wi-Fi and stereo equipment. We did buy a new stereo. We did buy new Wi-Fi equipment and a new server, and we installed all of this, the cabling, the gear, everything ourselves. The only thing I couldn't do, obviously, is supply the Wi-Fi services, which we get locally through Cox Business. I think I pay like $120 a month-ish for the Wi-Fi services. And all my gear, the cabling, the stereo unit, the Wi-Fi gear, all of that, I think was about $700. All right, now for the total cost of the build-out, this includes the exterior signs, the bookcases, the point-of-sale system, the point-of-sale software and checkout counter, the walls, the tables and chairs, and the Wi-Fi and stereo, $16,120. I'm laughing, but I'm crying a little bit inside. Dying inside? No, I'm not dying. I'm crying inside. Okay, we haven't covered books yet. If you're a bookstore and you got to fill this place with gear, just know that you're going to spend a whole lot of money on 2 things, books and merchandise. Now, the books ran me $23,000. I did all of my purchasing through Ingram. I didn't go to any discount books places. I didn't go through Amazon or any of that to try and buy discounted books. And the total cost for me for new books, filling my store, and this was roughly 500 individual titles, 1,500 books total, cost me about $23,000. Now, the other cost of goods is going to be merchandise, right? So we spent another $3,000 on merchandise, and that included stickers, bookmarks, t-shirts, that kind of thing. That is on the low end. We opened with just enough inventory. So I think my total inventory cost came out to right around $27,000. But realistically, I would estimate higher than that. I'd go a little bit closer to $35,000 if I were you. We strategized our bookcases. We took 12 bookcases, right? 6 shelves each, 6 books face out per shelf, and they're 3 feet wide each shelf. And that basically gave me book, right? All face out. So when we opened on opening day, every book in the store was face out all the way around the store in every one of the genres. And what I've done since then is just filled the store with more books. So we couldn't possibly do that now. But that was one way I was able to cut my cost of investing in a ton of books a little bit, right? I cut my cost a couple of $1,000s just by making sure all the books were facing out. And that filled up these bookcases. That is a very short-term strategy because immediately you need to start restocking a significant number of books or you're going to look very sparse very quickly. Now let's talk about the miscellaneous stuff, cleaning supplies, office supplies, that kind of stuff. We spent roughly $1,000 on that. And that wasn't bad at all. We got a vacuum, your typical cleaning supplies, toilet paper, paper towels. I did go out and spring for a microwave. That was like $200, something like that. A small refrigerator is another $100 to $200. We filled the back office with some snacks, that kind of thing. So that's an additional cost. And I was able to wrap all of that into my miscellaneous cost of about $1,000. So with that being said, my grand total for opening the shop was $50,755-ish, right? 50 grand, right? A little over $50,000. If I were to ballpark, I'd say that was about the lowest we could have done this to come into a commercial area like we're in, which is really nice, be able to cater to the customers the way we do, and have enough inventory to open with the right vibes, the right atmosphere, the right location, all those things in place. I would have estimated closer to 75, and if I had to pay for all my furnishings, I would have estimated $90,000 to $100,000. And again, we're just under 1,200 square feet. We're here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I opened on September 27th, 2025. So a final moment of inspiration would be that I haven't woken up one time since we opened and regretted this decision whatsoever. And I know that the costs that you guys heard today can be a little overwhelming, and it is a lot. It's natural to feel that way. I was nervous coming into this. My wife was like, dude, what are we doing? It's okay. That's all natural. That is, it's perfectly normal to feel that type of anxiety when you're taking on the burden and responsibility of something as significant as owning a retail business. My, I guess, good advice on this would be that honestly, the upfront feeling of anxious energy about the money and all the things quickly kind of subsides once the business is running and you realize that the true investment wasn't the upfront cost. The true investment is in operating and sustaining that business through its life. So that initial cost and that initial time investment is big, it's life altering, it's a lot, but it is a blip on the radar compared to how much you will do and spend over the life of your business. And before you know it, you're just kind of focused on the day-to-day operations and what it's going to take for you guys to satisfy your customers' demands, keep the store stocked, and keep everything in working order. And that's the real cost of a business, is the long tail, which again, I'll cover in another video. So if this is your first time on the channel, I appreciate you guys checking us out. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, I'm Lucas. I'm a horror writer and publisher, and I own Spineless Reads here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and we'd love to see you guys in the store sometime. So add us to your itinerary if you're visiting from out of town. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.